Hello everyone, this is LATHA AKULA. In this video we are going to study the new chapter, that is the first chapter in the class 11 NCERT textbook, that is the living world. So what is a living world? We know on earth a vast range of living organisms are present. A wide range of living organisms were present. And these living forms, the number of these living organisms, they were infinite. That means we cannot count how many number of living organisms, how many number of plants are present, how many number of animals are present. That means the number of the living organism is infinite. And here these living organisms, they not only grows on the grass fields, they will present on oceans. Some of the living organisms, they may present in the plateau, deserts, etc. But some living organisms, they also present in extreme climate conditions like hot, cold mountains. Like we know cold mountains, what the living organisms? Polar bears, penguins were present, right? Some of the living organisms, they grow in hot deserts, salty lakes and hot springs. In that climate conditions, the remaining living organisms, they cannot survive. What's the meaning of the life? What is the definition of the life? The life is, in the technical term, the life can be defined as the power of an organism that possess to maintain and reproduce itself on earth. By means of reproduction only the life will be proceeded forward, right? If there is no reproduction, the life will end. And here, the living organisms, they exhibit some unique characters. Because of those unique characters, they help in recognizing and differentiating them from the non-living organisms. And what are those characters? Like growth, reproduction, metabolism and sensitivity. All these are some of the unique characters exhibited by the living organisms and which are not exhibited by the non-living things. In that, the first one, growth. What is the growth? It is the fundamental characteristic feature of the all living organisms. In all living organisms, the growth will occur, right? And here there are several terms are present in the growth. And how the living organisms will grow? The growth, it may be increase in the number of cells that lead to the increase in the mass. Here, increase in the number and mass of the cells in their body. It is called as intrinsic property. That means in the living organisms, what will happen? Thus, by means of cell division, the number of cells increases. By the increase in the cells, the mass of the cells, that is weight of the body also increases. That lead to the growth. And it occurs in the body, right? Hence, it is the intrinsic property. The growth is intrinsic property in living organisms. So, we need to remember this, growth is intrinsic property. That means the growth occurs in the body. And here, in unicellular organisms, we know what are unicellular organisms, the living organisms which have only one cell. The life exists only in only one cell. They are called as unicellular organisms. What are the examples for the unicellular organisms? Amoeba, bacteria, those are the unicellular organisms, right? In those living organisms, how the growth occurs? By means of cell division. One cell divides into two cells. So the cell will grow for up to some certain age, and at certain age the size of the cell increases and that will divide into two daughter cells, right? Here one cell divides into two cells by the cell division. And here in unicellular organisms, the growth and reproduction. Here in unicellular organisms, this division is called as reproduction. Here both growth and reproduction are synonymous to each other. Both of them were synonymous to each other. Hence it is a mutually, growth and reproduction are mutually inclusive property in unicellular organisms. So what is a mutually inclusive property? Here both growth and reproduction both are synonymous with each other, and that is when the number of cells increases, when the cell starts reproduction, that and also the number of cells, growth of the cells also increases. That is both growth and reproduction are mutually inclusive properties in unicellular organisms. And what about the multicellular organisms? Multicellular organisms like plants, animals, human beings, growth is non-synonymous with the reproduction. So what it means, for example, boy is present, he was growing. He will grow for up to certain age. After getting certain age only in capacity, then only he will reproduce. That means both growth and reproduction are non-synonymous in multicellular organisms. That is called as mutually exclusive property. In unicellular organisms, growth and reproduction are mutually inclusive properties, but whereas in multicellular organisms, growth and reproduction were mutually exclusive properties. And what is the determinant and what is indeterminate growth? Determinate growth is seen in animals. If the growth period is fixed, that is called as determinate period. And if the growth period is not fixed, that is called as indeterminate growth. So in animals, they grow only up to certain age. For example, if you take the human beings, girls will grow up to 18 years, boys will grow up to 21 years only. That is, the growth is fixed. But whereas in plants, the growth is not fixed. The growth of the plants will end of the life. That is, the growth is not fixed here. So, if the growth is fixed, that is called as determinate growth. It is not fixed, that is called as indeterminate growth. And we have seen that the growth occurs in the living things, living organisms. But in non-living things also, growth occurs. How? If we see in non-living organisms, by means of deposition of material on the surface, the growth increases. For example, if you see snow mountains, because of the deposition of the snow, the mountains length increases. And here sand dunes also. Sand dunes, deposition of the sand by the rivers increases, that sand dunes increases, that is, it is extrinsic growth. It occurs on the surface of the mountains or sand dunes, hence it is extrinsic growth. Whereas in human beings, the growth is intrinsic growth. Growth occurs in their body. It occurs on the surface. This is about the growth. And the next one is reproduction. The next character exhibited by the living organisms was reproduction. So the reproduction is also fundamental characteristic feature of the living organisms, and this reproduction is not exhibited by the non-living things. And what is a reproduction? Reproduction is the capability of an individual. Here the new individuals are formed from the same kind of organism and which is grown up, which is from the grown up individual. Here the new individuals are formed from the same kind of individual. Here, for example, from the dog, only dog is produced. Same kind of individual is produced from the organism. And here, at the same time, when will reproduce the living organisms? When they get certain age, when they have fully grown up, then only they will undergo the reproduction procedure. And here, the living organisms, there are two types of reproductions were present. One is asexual reproduction and second one is the sexual reproduction. And if you see the asexual reproduction, there is involvement of single parent, only one parent. The reproduction occurs from the one parent. And here, the sexual reproduction, two parents are involved. One is a male and another one is the female. And here, in sexual reproduction, there may be the formation of the gametes, or sometimes they may not be produced. But in sexual reproduction, there is the formation of the gametes occurs. Gametes are nothing but sex cells. Here, these gametes have male gametes and female gametes, right? These male gametes and female gametes, they fuse with one another and produce zygote. From the zygote, new individual was developed. Here, because of the involvement of two parents, there is chances of variations were more. And here, the daughter cells were similar to the parent here. Here, only single parent was involved, right? Hence, the daughter cells which are produced, they were identical to their parent. They were identical to their mother. But here, there is involvement of two parents. Hence, the daughters are the offsprings, they were non-identical to their mother. And here, there are different types of asexual reproductions were present, like fission, budding, fragmentation, regeneration, etc. And that the first one is fission. Here, fission means one cell divides into two cells. One cell will grow fully and it increases its size and it will divides into two. That is called as fission, binary fission, right? That was seen in the bacteria, amoeba and algae. So in that what will happen? One cell, it will grows in size and divides into two daughter cells. That is called as fission. And in lower organisms, there is another type of reproduction is seen, that is called as budding. So this budding is seen in yeast and hydra. So in this is the yeast. In these organisms, what will happen? This is the parent, right? On the surface of the parent, there is a bulge or projection will develops, and that will grows for some time. Later, this projection will be separated from the parent, and that will leads to the individual life. That is called as budding. And next one is the fragmentation. What is fragmentation? We have seen in fungi, right? So this is seen in the filamentous algae, fungi, and also in bryophytes like protonema stage of the mosses, that they exhibits a fragmentation process. What is here? For example, if you see the fungal mycelia, when the fungal mycelia was broken, the broken part of that mycelia will develop into the new fungi. That is called as fragmentation. And next one, true regeneration. Regeneration means what? If there is any part was broken from the body and the remaining part of the organism, that is called as regeneration. So that the true regeneration was seen in planaria. In planaria, when the animal was transversely or vertically it was cut off, and the remaining part will be produced from the cut part. That is called as true regeneration. So this is about the types of reproduction. But all the living organisms are able to reproduce, but there is an exception. In some cases, even in human couple also, some people, they were not able to reproduce. They were called as sterile. Sterile means they do not have the reproducing capacity. And examples for those sterile organisms are mule. What is a mule? Mule is a crossbreed of horse and donkey, and it will not have the reproducing capability. And also worker bees. In the honeybees, we have three different types of honeybees, right? Like drones, queen bee, worker bee. In that, the worker bee, they do not have the reproducing capability. So these are called as sterile organisms. So this is about reproduction. With this, we have completed the next character, reproduction.